Hello and welcome to our talk on traditional ethnic clothing. Ethnic clothing is worn in a specific country or region, so let's go through the continents and talk about a few. Starting off in Africa, we have the kaftan, spelled different ways with the C or a K, and it's a vibrant robe or tunic. The kaftan is often worn as a coat or an oversized dress, usually that reaches the ankles with long sleeves. Kaftans are a traditional garment of Morocco, which is located in North Africa region. The loincloth is a one-piece garment, sometimes kept in place by a belt, which covers, the private area. And now this is the first remnants of what we know as intimate apparel or underwear. So the first ones that were discovered was in Egypt. The kente cloth is a process of stripe weaving that comes from West Africa. Stripe weaving is a textile technique in which large numbers of thin strips of cloth are sewn together to produce a whole finished yardage of fabric. Most stripe weaves are produced in West Africa from hand-woven fabrics, just like this. This is a hand weave. Okay, let's move on to Asia. In Western culture, the Mandarin color became very popular, and it was taken from the cheongsam, and it's a body-hugging one-piece Chinese dress for a woman, also known as Mandarin gown in Western culture. The stylish and often tight-fitting cheongsam is the best known today as 1920s inspiration in Shanghai. So it made fashion fashionable by socialites and upper class women. Next, we go to Japan, where the kimono is a traditional garment. The word kimono literally means thing to wear. That has been denoted for its very long robes and its T-shaped sleeves. Kimono also wraps around the body, always from left side over the right, and it's secured by a sash called the obi. Obi is tied in the back, and sometimes it can get very elaborate, just like these beautiful bows and folds, very origami type shapes. Moving on to Korea, and the hanbok is a traditional Korean dress, and it is often characterized by its vibrant colors, simple shapes, and it means in Korean clothing. It is also worn for semi-formal to formal events during traditional festivities and celebrations. Now moving on to India. The choli is the traditional clothing for women in India, also worn together with the ganga and the sari. So the choli is a blouse shell garment. For us, it would be like a crop top, right? It's very fitted to the body and has short sleeves and a low neck. The ganga is a long skirt, which sometimes is pleated, and it usually has embroidery or a thick border at the bottom. Very beautiful detail. Then the sari is a strip of unstitched cloth that hangs across the body. Typically, it's about 4 to 9 meters long. So there's tons of fabric to drape. It's very beautiful. And again, lots of detail, embroidery, beading. Okay, so let's move on. Southeast Asia, we have a few dyeing techniques that have become popular across the globe. The inkjet is a resistant dye technique used to create a pattern. It's the more common methods of resistant dyeing, and it involves covering the fabric to shield it from penetration of the dye. And the word inkjet comes from the Malayan word as tie. So you're tying these designs, right? While it is unknown when or where this technique developed, Asia has several cultures across the region that has strong inkjet traditions. Now, this is a very labor-intensive dye process, and it's very rare that you'll see a large item made of the inkjet because it's so expensive. In Western culture, you'll see inkjet, real and fake, in a ton of accessories, from shoes. Sometimes you'll see a full garment. A lot of times you'll see it in home decor because the fabric, again, is very time consuming to make. Now here's a short video of how a traditional inkjet is made. Sorry for their disco music. I wouldn't have chosen this music for the video. Oh darn. Okay, finally got the video to work. Here is the traditional inkjet method, where they tie the natural yarns on a loom and they sketch their designs. See how they're using a thick marker so they can see where that design line is. And then they tie rubber to cover the design lines, and this is where the dye will not penetrate because you're covering it in pieces of rubber. So as you can imagine, this is a very time-consuming, very long process. So from here, you dye each exposed yarn in each section, depending what color you would like in your design. Once they dye all the desired pieces, they lay the yarn out to dry. So again, long process of laying it out to dry. Once that's dry, they put it back on the loom, and then they get ready to weave. See how long that is? They're stretching it out. And here the yarn is ready to be woven into fabric and the finished product. And that is an inkjet. Now the next process that we're going to talk about is one of your final projects that you're going to create your own of, and it's the batik. And this is another wax-resistant dyeing technique, also known to be created in Southeast Asia. It's hard to pinpoint which country or where it came from exactly because so many different cultures in this region have adapted this type of dye method. So the batik is made by either drawing dots or lines of your desired pattern, just as you see here, with hot wax. In our case, we're going to use Elmer's white glue to create our design onto a cotton fabric. So once the artisan is finished designing their pattern, they allow it to dry, and then they soak the dried pattern in either hot boiling water, and they repeat it depending on how much color they would like it to absorb. And I have a picture, or I'm sorry, a video of what that looks like here. So let's play this. Here's the artisan sketching their design by hand. So then they apply the hot wax, hand drawn. See that tiny, tiny needle-like instrument that they use to create these very fine designs. They're so beautifully done. And again, a long process, very lengthy, but the outcome is just so beautiful. Okay. So different method of applying the hot wax. Here they're using a pattern or a machine. So many different instruments to apply this hot wax pattern. So here they're preparing the dyes. And again, since we're using Elmer's glue for our final project, the hot water will dissolve your Elmer's glue, and then you can see the dye take onto the fabric. So here they're removing the dye. And then this is the outcome, the final outcome. Look how beautiful these colors are. And so the lightest part of the design is where the wax was. And that is how traditional batik is made. We talked I think we might have talked in class about natural dyes. And I found this video and I want to share with you. If you don't have fabric dye at home, you can always use tea or coffee. But here's some other creative vegetables that you can use that you may have at home.
Nope. Buy off the shelf. No artificial colors involved. Just vegetables. Red is from beets. The yellow is from fresh turmeric here. Purple is actually from this red cabbage head here. And then to get the blue, you actually just add a little bit of baking soda to your dye mixture, and it turns it a bright shade of blue. To get the green, obviously you mix your blue and your yellow. And then to get your orange, you mix your red and your yellow. You need 3 cups water.
Primary colors.
For cabbage, you're going to want to use half a head of cabbage.
Okay, can you cut it up?
And
so
I
we're not
chopped
putting
it up.
this
Yeah.
whole half.
No.
So I'll link this video if you want to continue viewing this. It's pretty interesting. So check that out. You might find that that's good use for you for your batik fabric. Okay, moving on to Australia, the next continent. So in Australia, possum skin cloaks are very traditional for the Aboriginal people of Southeast Australia. So the cloaks were made by numerous possum pelts and then sewn together. And on these pelts, in the inside, are done of decorative motifs that mean something to that either family or Aboriginal tribe people. So let's move into Central America. So here we have a ton of different traditional techniques for embroidery. The mula is a traditional design where you sew about 4 or 5 layers of different color fabric, and as you create a design, you cut away at the color that you want exposed. Very beautiful. Again, probably used for a small piece of fabric. You don't see it too much in like bedspreads or anything large. And this is original to Panama and Colombia. Let's hop over to Eastern Europe. We have the sarafan. It's a long trapeze-shaped Russian jumper, and it's worn in traditional Russian folk costumes by women and children. Also in Europe, the kilt has appeared to be a belted plaid skirt or a long garment that's worn. Traditionally, it was an all-over garment, and then more recent in the 17th, 18th century, it's turned into a bottom garment. Okay, North America. So here we have to pinpoint the craftsmanship in the moccasin shoes that are made out of deer skin, and it's often beaded or embroidered. So historically it's the footwear of the indigenous people of North America for hunting and even traders during the time where Europeans settled here. Moving down to Mexico, the hipil is a popular traditional garment worn by indigenous women all over central Mexico and Central America. It's a long fitted tunic. Normally just has 2 seams here at the sides, and it's oversized because, sizing and all, and it's woven. Soutache is referred to as Russian beading, and you'll see this type of embroidery in many militant and mariachi uniforms, and sometimes like kaftans or jabbas. The Middle East. Jabba is a tunic garment that is worn as a over layers. So this is traditional to the Middle East, not to be confused with the kaftan. Pacific Islanders, they have quite a few distinct garments, but the one I want to talk about is the tapa cloth, and I'm going to show you a video of that. So here is a quick video
of the tapa mallet, rings out in every village at any hour of the day.